Spoiler alert for The Holiday. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stepping into Frame, our podcast all about women in screenwriting. Today we are talking about the Nancy Meyers 2006 film The Holiday, and because it's nearly Christmas, and I'm joined by Marcus and Eva. Hi guys.
Hi.
I just saw you there, Marcus, with John Finnegan across your title.
It's confusing.
Yeah, hi. It is confusing. Anyway, hi guys. So it is that time of year. You can see that we're rugged up. So that means one thing. That means the holiday season is upon us. So what better movie to review than Nancy Meyers' The Holiday? So maybe let's kick off by having a chat about, well, when did you first see it / first impressions of the film?
Oh, God. I mean, it's a long time. I have no idea when I first came to this movie. It was, by the way, I've dressed up as Jude Law for you all. I've done in my nicest coat and scarf.
The note was wear costume. Wear
Yeah.
character costumes. No, it wasn't, but it should have been or could have been.
Full,
yeah. It's great.
full
We like
cosplay
it.
edition, yeah.
You haven't got the fake tan though. That's the problem
true.
for the Jude Law thing. You know, you need
That
a bit
is true,
more.
and it's pretty
Anyway.
unusual that my hairline is receding less than someone's. So I'll take that really gladly. This movie, like, oh man, I probably saw it when it first came out, or the first time it was on, sort of over the holidays at some stage. And I have really fond memories of it. I remember the warm and snuggly feeling, and the music is so great. I've had a slightly different experience with it this time, I have to admit.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll come to that. But yeah, initially,
Okay, yeah.
lovely. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Eva, how about you?
Well, I first watched it, I think, 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely really up there as a kind of classic romantic Christmas film. Like it hit all of the right marks. It was a bit problematic in areas, but maybe that's because of when it was made. In comparison to now, everything's a little bit problematic.
Yeah.
When it comes to stereotyping the gender roles, especially. So, and you can't really do romance without doing that a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. What's really interesting that it's the first time you've seen it, because I feel like it's one of those go-to movies for me. I can't remember when I probably first saw it when it first came out, but I absolutely, despite myself, I really love this movie. I love. It's just like you, Marcus. I get this warm, kind of fuzzy feeling about this movie. And when I've looked at it again just the other day, just before this, I started to put a slightly different screenwriting lens on it, and I've got some other thoughts about it now, but it also has, I think it's a movie that over time since 2006 has sort of warmed for people. I think it's become, like some movies. Okay, let me compare Love Actually, that came out in what I think 2003, and I think it seems to be like the feeling about Love Actually seems to be sort of getting less warm. I could be wrong, but just in sort of the circles in which I travel. But the feeling about The Holiday seems to be still pretty fine. Like people seems to feel pretty warm and fuzzy about it. I don't know.
I think
What do
you're
you
probably
think?
right. I think that there is this there is something. I think it's because the setup is so compelling. I think the idea of, haven't we all at one point wanted to just go away for a little while, and that the idea of that house swap.
Yes.
I don't know. Did they really exist? Does those house swaps really exist? Can you do that? Like, I don't know if that's a real thing.
I loved about it. Well, I loved that 2006. That was like pre-Airbnb,
yeah.
right? So there's, you look at the little site that they were on, and it's like, man, you realize how long ago technologically 2006
It's
was.
mad.
It doesn't feel that long ago in many ways, but it's like, I don't know. There probably was those things,
yeah.
but
I think that the idea of
Mm.
the adventure of it, and as a way of kind of trying to get over someone, you don't get much further away than dramatically choosing to go away for Christmas to somewhere you've never been the day before. It's for 2 weeks as well. 2 weeks is such an intense amount of time to go and stay in someone else's house. Like, it's I think there's something really romantic, not in the kind of lovey-dovey way, but romantic as an idea of being able to run away in that way. I think there's something quite compelling about that. And I wonder, maybe that's why it's in an age where people probably would quite like to run away from lots of things. Maybe there's something in that.
Yeah. And I think structurally, straight away, you've got two fish out of water, in terms of types of stories you've got. Your first overlay of that story is two fish out of water. And I quite like the idea that there's two, well, it's not two protagonists necessarily, because I guess if you think about it completely analytically, Iris is the key protagonist. She's the one that starts with the voiceover. It's kind of her point of view, and then it goes
although Arthur does tell Maggie that she's the protagonist, she's the leading lady. That's what Arthur says, and he kind of comments on the script throughout, really.
How do you mean Maggie?
Yeah, Maggie. Did I say Maggie?
Do you mean Iris? Kate Winslet?
Oh, was her name Iris?
Yeah.
I wrote it down as Maggie.
Maggie was it's all right. It's all
nice.
It's what we're here to talk about. No, that wasn't Maggie. Was Jack Black's girlfriend? I think he's.
Yeah,
I think,
that
yes. And so Kate Winslet was Iris. So yes.
So sorry. I think Iris was.
Yes,
writing that out.
Yes.
I think Iris was more of a protagonist than Amanda, or they were completely equal.
I see. I have a totally opposite reading on that because you're right, and this is where I have this is where I've come to this in a different way this time around. Is because you're right. The movie sets up Kate Winslet as your central protagonist, and we meet her first. She, all this, that, and the other. The interactions with Arthur, you're quite right. In the screenwriting kind of area, it all sets her up as that. But I feel like this film really doesn't care about her that much. Like the whole thing is that there is that the kind of role that she sits in when you think so this is a romantic comedy, right? It's a romantic film at the very least. Comedy I think is negligible at times, but it's a romantic movie. So front and center, your two leading people are the people that are most intertwined in a romantic relationship, and that is Jude Law and Cameron Diaz. You spend most of the time with them. I'm pretty sure they have a fair chunk more screen time than Iris does, and you see them together a lot more. Their relationship begins a lot earlier. There's a long, protracted kind of love story there, whereas the Kate Winslet Jack Black story is like begins as friends, and it's a very different, very sweet love story in its own right, but it feels to me very much as a second fiddle to the what is the central thing. Do you know what I mean?
They have a much more satisfying journey, though. Their story and their journey and their narrative flow is much more satisfying to the viewer than the other one, I think. There's a lot of kind of unanswered questions as to why the Diaz and Jude Law thing works out, whereas I feel very satisfied with the Iris and Miles love story. That makes sense to me. It's like, oh yeah, they're very suited, and it makes sense.
Yeah, and I disagree on that point, because I think actually Iris's story is not just about her and Jack Black. It's about her getting over the other guy, right? So and I kind of think that's the central thing, because actually that's where the story starts, is where there she is, the kind of what is it, the what's the word? Not unreconciled.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah,
you love someone, and someone doesn't love you back. What's that called?
Unrequited.
Unrequited. Thank you. Yeah. So the story starts off with unrequited love, right? And her story is about her character arc is about coming to terms with herself and getting over, and realizing that she doesn't need this absolute bad man to make her feel good. And
and she does that before she realizes that Jack Black has a thing for her.
Exactly. Yes.
And so it's more important that her storyline has taken her on this kind of journey of self-discovery.
Don't get me wrong.
Diaz doesn't really change.
Don't get me wrong. It's a far more compelling and much more interesting story. I just don't think the film cares that much about it. And I think that I think it tries to. I think the writing sets out to make that the central storyline. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dazzled by Jude Law's stunning good looks. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe I'm just drawn in by him that much that I can't take my eyes off him.
Is that Jude Law versus Jude Law versus
Yeah,
Black
maybe
Jack,
that's
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't really buy Jack Black as a romantic interest. I know, he's not a terrible actor at it, but I've just seen him in far too many Tenacious D style, School of Rock style things to really
Mhm.
buy him as a lead
Yeah.
protagonist and a love
And
interest. I think maybe it's him that makes Kate Winslet not seem
that
like
might
a
well
lead.
be it. And when you think you put them against two people, Jude Law and Cameron Diaz, for goodness sake, they are like A-list leading names. And Kate Winslet is, but isn't necessarily in the same way as that. And I think you're right. Jack Black also very much isn't in that role. So maybe that's exactly what it is. Maybe it's the casting that throws that off a little bit there. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of Jack Black as that? I mean, Evie, you didn't really buy him as that
Well,
love
I
interest?
bought him as by the end. I bought him as a good fit for her, and I liked the story and I liked the character dynamic. I just found it difficult to see Jack Black as anything other than my other experiences of him, and that's less about him as an actor and probably more about me watching a lot of him when I was younger and not this film.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I tend to feel a bit the same. I really like though. I mean, to me, well, one of the things I like about this film is that it feels like it is very much the female gaze on the whole movie in terms of the men are very much not your A-type, uber men. They're like sensitive and softer and nicer, and I really liked that. I thought that was really, I mean, I guess romantic comedy they tend to be, although not always. But I did like that framing. I thought that was quite interesting, and for me, probably made me connect with both of the male characters more. And I mean, I know Jack Black wasn't your beautiful romantic hero, but he's got such a great
The
personality,
problem that
hasn't he?
And some of the things he said were super romantic as well.
The problem I have with Jack Black, though, is that when you watch Jack Black, you're watching Jack Black. It doesn't matter what he's in. And I think that, again, that the rootin' tootin' lootin' dootin' stuff that he's cracking on with at that point, I'm just sat there going, can you stop? Like, can you stop Jack Blacking all over the place? It's like watching something with Jim Carrey in it. It's just Jim Carrey. Like, with
Yeah.
notable exceptions, I will admit. But, it's... I think that for me, maybe we've diagnosed my apathy for that storyline, because I think, and maybe it is Jack Black, maybe it is just the fact that we're watching Jack Black have another go at playing Jack Black, but this time he's a music guy. Oh wait, he's always a music guy. I found that very difficult to connect.
He's a viable love interest in this one, though. He's a viable love interest, and that's what makes it slightly different from all the other times he plays Jack Black.
But I don't buy it though. That's the thing. I don't buy him. I don't see that Kate Winslet that Iris as a character would be interested in him. I think that she is, and I understand that you've got a polar opposite to the person she has been after and has been kind of quietly loving for a long time. And I get it. I understand on paper. And I think maybe that's the problem for me here, is that on paper, all of that story, that whole plot line is central and interesting and compelling and everything like that. But I just don't think it actually comes across. And I think that the way that it's delivered feels like a B story. And it feels like a B story in a romantic comedy. Because the romance is not front and center in a similar way. I would be much more interested in watching a movie about Iris and not Jack Black in this case, and seeing how that develops, and actually spending more time with those characters and seeing why they get together. Because at the moment it feels like plot armor that they get together. They get together because the writer said so.
See, yeah, I don't buy that, because I think what also, okay, so there's a love interest. So the thing with Kate Winslet's character with Iris is she's kind of almost got she kind of carries three storylines in a way. She's got her I've just forgotten the word again.
Unrequited
love, that's it. Unrequited. So unrequited love, she's got the Jack Black thing, but she also is the facilitator of the actual B story, which is the Arthur Hollywood writer B story. And so actually, in terms of the load that she carries or her character carries through the film, it's definitely the strongest, I think. And I think it's just that the Cameron Diaz and the Jude Law storyline is a bit more dazzling. It's a bit more exciting because when I first watched the film, the very first time ages ago, I was kind of team Amanda, right? And what was the other? And Graham, Amanda and Graham. But now when I watch it, I'm much more Iris. My kind of allegiances in the movie have sort of shifted as I've watched it over the years. But I don't know. Yeah.
I thought Iris was a lot more likable. I thought Iris was much more likable than Amanda. I enjoyed watching her more. I liked her interactions more. I just thought she was probably a better role model for women watching romance comedies. Although again, I don't see too much of the comedy in that. It was just a romance, wasn't it? A very good one, but still. I like the twist in Amanda's story. I think that was the best thing, was the kind of Jude Law. He was set up to be, he's just another player, it's just a kind of holiday fling, and then it's like, oh no, he's like that because he's got children.
That's nice,
and so I thought the twist
it's a great setup, like it does work in terms of the structure of the thing and whatnot. I just think there's something in the execution here that I found really lacking this time around. And perhaps it's just because it's a bit older now and I'm a bit older, and maybe it's also, that there's something I found so saccharine about the whole thing. And it's a romance, so I mean, yeah, no, I know. But I think maybe it's because there are a bunch of things in this film that English people say that English people would never say in real life. Like,
oh, great.
I made a list. Do you want to hear them?
Share those. Give me examples. Right. Okay, yeah.
Down to the wire. That's something an English person would never say. I get by taking Valium. Nope. That's not going to happen. Outrageous. A nice cup of cocoa. It's hot chocolate. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, but she's American.
Yeah, but it's not her that says it. It's not her that says it. It's a no. A nice cup of cocoa. That's Kate as Iris.
It's on the website, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Take a leak.
Yeah.
I'm going to go take a leak. No, you go for a wee. That's not something a British person would ever say. Also, the
I think I have heard a British person do that last one, but I will absolutely give you all the others.
How do you do as well? That's a classic. I mean, it is something that a cliche British thing to say, but the daughter says, "How do you do?" At that moment, I just think, it's not real. Like, it's not. And also, I've got a couple more. Olivia's going to be a real ball buster. Outrageous. And then I have a cow in the backyard. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, how? Like, what?
It's not even. It's not the fact. I mean, I live in the deepest, darkest countryside. I know people with cows in the back garden. Specifically, garden is the thing, and I think that's one of those things. Is that also there was a moment when she's driving the Mini through the thing. Slow down, by the way. But she's driving the Mini through the snow, and the horns that go past her are like massive American interstate trucker horns. And they're like through the thing, and so there's a load of stuff in that particular anything set in the UK, set by English people. Also, the Daily Telegraph Christmas party. No, that's not a thing. It's the idea that you would gather in that way at your place of work. I just don't think is quite on the nose. It felt very Americanized. I feel as though
that's very
just there seems to be a lack of understanding of British culture, and I found it really it took me out of it. It took me way out of it. I disconnected with it in quite a big way because I thought they haven't done your research here. You're going to set a film in the UK.
That's fascinating.
It's and also the fact that she has a Mini. I mean, come on, Americans! Like, well, there are other cars. It seems to me that it's I'm being deliberately a bit mean, but
yes, we can see.
But it was distracting, I found.
I'm wondering.
Go, Eva.
Oh no, I just I found quite a fair bit of it quite unbelievable as well, and I wonder how much of it they actually filmed in England, if any.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean there were not just specific to British bits. There were just bits that I found a little bit frustrating and took me out of the script, like when she's in the taxi and he's having to slow down a little bit, and she decides to run instead. I mean, even the taxi at a slower pace is
Yeah.
gonna not be as slow, and she wouldn't be as tired. Like, it's just so
that whole
silly
aspect,
as
though, the
is.
first thing you see her do when she arrives is have to walk that whole way around because I can't turn this round down there, love. But then he pulls up in front of the cottage at the end of it,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
seemingly has had no problem with turning around down there. And then so the whole kind of premise for her needing to walk that way, all that way with her big suitcases and the spoiled rich kind of thing that she has going on is a complete fallacy because you just undo it later on. And I feel this is what I mean about execution is that it feels as though there are things here that are a little bit phoned in, that haven't been thought about the whole way through. You start something there, you don't see it through later. The Britishisms that are completely lost. There seems to be a big lack of kind of research that's gone into that makes it feel quite unrealistic, as you say. Even there are, I don't know. It took me out of it. The execution of the execution really did take me out of it, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Do you know what though? I never thought that I'd be like the one saying this tonight, because I've only just watched it and I thought that I might be like the most negative. But yes, it was problematic and it did have loads of bits, but also I guess I kind of was quite happy to still suspend my disbelief just that little
of
bit
course.
more because I felt like the characters were actually really the character dynamics were really well written and really nice, and I don't know what it was. Like, I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was other than just really caring for the characters more than I thought I would. But I'm not really a fan of rom-coms, especially ones that are lacking the com. And
Right.
and it had all of these issues with it, and I was really surprised that I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I have to say, as the token Southern Hemisphere person here, I've grown up. Our whole culture in Australia is this weird mix of British and American. So I did not notice any of those things that you mentioned. It just all went over my head. Just because that's I'm used to that. Like that's everything. We get these weird mix. Like backyard. I would say that. So yeah, I didn't notice it at all, but that's fascinating, and that makes sense now. Why, from a British point of view, you would be like, this feels a bit weird. Whereas, yeah, I didn't hit it at all. But the couple of points I did feel that were a bit weird in the execution was, well, it was the running in heels, man. The running in heels. There's got to stop this. What is going on? It's not safe. Would you? I wouldn't even. I can't even walk in snow in flat shoes in this country, let alone run. Let alone in heels.
It's a fallacy that women can do it without looking a little bit like a chicken.
Exactly.
And the only way we can do it.
The other thing that I thought was very strange was there were two points that I felt were really particularly directed, where I didn't feel that I felt the actors were kind of it was almost like it felt forced. Right at the very end, the end scene where they're doing that weird like dancing in the lounge room thing. I don't know if you noticed that. Like, it felt really contrived. It was sort of because it was like, yeah, like, and I was like, yeah, and it was, it was like with the glass, and it was like, oh geez. So that I felt was really difficult. And then equally that moment where Kate Winslet wakes up, presses the clock or whatever. Oh, sorry, there's a baby crying next door. Hopefully, can't hear it. Anyway, so the when Kate Winslet wakes up and does that, like, plays the air guitar on the pillow, does that? Do you remember that? And that felt a bit like, didn't feel
Cameron
very,
Diaz when she puts on
like
Mr. Brightside as well, and she, she's dancing around the cottage.
I did.
Oh,
I
you liked
that?
that?
I
Okay,
say.
fair enough.
Yeah, no, I did like that. Yeah, because I love that song. I love it, and that would be me.
Oh, fair
so
enough,
yeah,
fair
totally.
enough.
But yeah. So I've got this theory. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. And we're going to talk about rom-com in our Is Rom-Com Dead on the earlier in December, which is exciting. But I've got this feeling that, or this theory, that because this was done in 2006, I think this was the last of the big budget, big name rom-coms as we knew them. Because I've looked sort of into from 2006 on, and I can't see any other, like, formulaic, big budget, big Hollywood star rom-com. I can't find another one offhand since 2006.
I was
The last,
actually
yeah, go on.
sorry. I was actually talking about this with my friend last night. We were trying to work out if there were any since 2006. We were like, well,
Mm,
has anything come after the holiday?
mm,
We haven't found anything yet, but
no.
I also haven't done my proper rabbit hole research, so I will get back to you.
Yeah, so I had a bit of a look around, and I was looking at all things that were sort of aroundish that time, like Bridget Jones and Love Actually, and they were all a little bit earlier. And the only one I could find was Juno, which was the year after, but
It's not
that's not
formulaic in
really
that way, is
typical
it? Yeah.
rom-com. No. And I can't, and so the most recent one, or the only other one I could find, was the one that's come out quite recently, which is that Ticket to Paradise
Oh,
with Julia Roberts and George Clooney, which I
did you?
saw. And
How was it?
yes,
Is
and
it worth trying it?
I feel like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I don't want to go on a tangent here, but just a little one. So I feel like George Clooney and Julia Roberts got together and went, you know what? I'm a bit bored. Do you want to make a movie? Yeah, let's make a movie. And I don't like,
Yeah.
man, missed a trick. Tried really hard to bring all that formulaic stuff back that we know from that 2006. It just doesn't fly, I don't think. We've just as an audience, as a global audience, I think we've just moved on
Mhm.
from that formulaic rom-com thing. So it didn't fly for me at all.
That's interesting.
Lots of issues
It's
with it.
funny though that
Yeah, but I don't know. But I
you
don't.
mentioned
Yeah,
Juno in that, and this is definitely part of that conversation that you will have. So I won't linger on this, but I wonder if that has
mm,
a role to play there, because Juno is that sort of offbeat that offbeat kind of idea, and it changes a lot of things. It does a lot of things very
mm,
differently. Maybe that's was the start of it. Perhaps that was this idea of because I
yeah.
find that The Holiday and other kind of Christmassy films have a lot more in common with the sort of Netflix original A Prince for Christmas kind of movies, and
All the
the Hallmark
Hallmark
movies.
movies,
Yeah, they
Hallmark
have a lot
Christmas.
more in
Yeah,
common with that
yeah,
than they do kind of any other kind of movie that I know at the moment. And I wonder if perhaps the rom-com is in fact alive and well. It's just moved house and it's not looked at as well.
I think you might. I think you might have something there, because I've definitely seen rom-com within, say, Christmas films in
Mm.
particular, like Last Christmas. That was great because they updated a lot of the kind of typical elements that would happen in it. But I don't think it can survive in its
No.
previous form.
Postmodern
Um,
romantic
but
comedy. Perhaps that's where we're at now. But we're spoiling this conversation that you're going to have in December. For
yeah.
goodness sake, what are we
yeah,
Yes,
doing?
yes. Sorry, we won't linger. But I just thought that was an interesting consideration, that maybe this was like the end of the rom-com as we knew it, that particular movie, because certainly can't think of anything else. And yeah, it's just fascinating the way I think every type of romantic slash comedic kind of movie, the big shift has been about the diversity piece, right? We've just got all that, the movies now so much more diverse and blah blah blah. Anyway, we won't linger on that point. What else? What other kind of striking thoughts did you have? What other good things did you find about it? What do you like about it?
I loved the fact that there were two different main characters who were both women, but were both different enough from each other that you could kind of root more for one than the other, depending on your own personality as the viewer. And I think that Nancy Myers did really well at giving viewers an option of how they enjoyed the film. And I love it when films do that. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. And I like the way that they swapped storylines. I actually think they kept a fairly decent balance. It kept me just about entertained. I think there was a little bit near the end where I started getting a little bit bored. But then it picked back up, and I got back into it, and I was all for the kind of perfect rom-com ending at the end.
Yeah, it was certainly very enough plot twists, wasn't there, to keep to keep us interested. And I think it was a little bit different from your sort of earlier rom-coms in that it did have quite a bit of complexity to it around multiple characters, because you got kind of several storylines going on at once. So that I thought that was really good in terms of, it was quite sharp from that point of view, quite a lot of things to consider and different viewpoints and different, you're right, Eva, different characters to Barrack and all that sort of stuff. I thought one of the things I wanted to chat about for a minute was the B story, if you like, which was the Arthur, the screenwriter story.
He's the best.
He was so good, wasn't he? I just loved him as a character. And I wondered whether, because, I don't know if you recall, he made quite a few comments about the changes in Hollywood and how, it used to be that a movie had to open and, now, whatever a movie takes on its first day dictates how long it lasts in cinema. And his conversations about, now that's a leading lady and that's a good character and this is a good story. And, this is when, this kind of the glory days of when he was a screenwriter and how stories were good, characters were good, actors were good. Do you think that was I guess just in light of that conversation we're having about, is this film the last of the rom-coms as we know it? Do you think that was a bit of a commentary from Nancy Meyers about the shift in Hollywood?
I think it has to be. I think that that stuff's not coming from nowhere, and it is something of a love letter. That whole story and the fact that he's honoured in the way he is as well. It does feel like something of perhaps a obituary for the writing of the past, and maybe she knew exactly what she was doing. Maybe it was a case of we will not see this like again, as it were, to pick up on your point. Maybe that's what this is, and maybe that's the kind of eulogy for the past in that way, because they drop a lot of kind of the classics and the idea, the thing that runs through that the whole time is Kate Winslet having to watch, wanting to watch all these movies and her changing and growing as a character because of these movies that she's watching, and learning to be the kind of lead in her own life and things like that, and the idea that movies can change you for the better, and they can have a positive impact when art is allowed to flourish. And perhaps we no longer live in an age where art is allowed to flourish on screen in that way, or certainly in 2006 anyway. I wouldn't want to comment right now, but they're certainly in a pre-streaming world, where cinemas were dominated by studios. I think there was, just about pre-YouTube as well, pre-internet as we would know it, as this kind of content creating machine and things like that. No phones as we know them. It was dominated by that. I think that the landscape has changed somewhat now, of course, but it actually changed almost unrecognizably from what it was then. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. What I would say is that I don't know that, because I'm for some reason a bit of a Debbie Downer on this, and I don't mean to be, because I didn't exactly not enjoy it, but but there are a few things here that I think do that again. I just thought, I don't think you've really earned that. The kind of the idea that there's a line when she says to him, "I'm looking for a bit of corny in my life," and he went, "That's a nice line." It's like, no, it's not. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
that's not a nice line at all.
Super cheap.
Yeah, there's nothing. Like it's I thought if you're gonna walk that path and you're gonna go down the route of exploring a writer and things like that on screen, you've got to make sure the script you're doing it in is like point for point tight and perfect. And I think there are a few too many things and a few too many contrivances and a few too many things here to justify that element. Perhaps I'm being a bit too critical,
but isn't I think you are being way too critical, because isn't that what rom-coms are all about? Like, if you're going to have tweet, like you want a bit of cheese, right? You want a bit of tweet.
A bit,
you want
yeah.
a bit
Suspend disbelief.
And I am,
and come on,
I'm all there to do that. I'm all there to suspend that disbelief. And like I said, in previous viewings, I've enjoyed it, and I've been, I've had the warm fuzzy feeling. But on this viewing, I found that the contrivances were a step too far, and perhaps that's just simply because because we live in a different age, and maybe it's because this is the last of the rom-coms, and maybe that's what it is. And maybe I'm kind of similar. I'm not all about the rom-coms in the way that others are. I don't know if you've noticed, but it is one of those things that
no clue.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's all it is. A bit of cheese is fine, but I feel like this is full-blown moldy Stilton that we've got on the go on occasion here, and it's a bit too far for me.
Oh gosh, okay, that's brutal. Yeah, that's a bit rough. What do you think, Eva? Is Marcus completely out of line?
Out of line.
I found it pretty cheesy, but also I kind of expected that, like when I looked at, I thought we were doing, was it Last Holiday? So I thought that it was going to be like a kind of silly comedy adventure type. And then I realized it was a rom-com, and I was like, do you know what? Okay, Christmas rom-com, I can do this. And it's not what I would normally watch, but I did enjoy it for what it was.
Yeah. Look, I think it's all, you got to embrace the cheese, right? In rom-coms, you just got to, this is what you're going to get. It's like eating McDonald's, right? You go, it's not good for you. You know what you're going to get, but there's some weird enjoyment that you get out of it, right?
Totally, yeah.
It's like movie McDonald's.
Totally. But the problematic moments at times were enough to take me out of the moment, enough to get me a little bit bored of it. When Iris was training Arthur to walk again at the age of, I don't know, 87 or something, but he can walk again within, I don't know, a couple of weeks of her training him.
Yes,
like the physio that she is, she's clearly qualified as an occupational therapist. And I just thought it was the most ableist thing in the world when he kind of jogged up the stairs.
But it was days, though. They turned that around in literally, I think, 3 days, which means the Writers Guild of America put an entire tribute to him together in a few days' time. That's the thing. It was just, and also in the nicest way possible, Iris, you're here for like 2 weeks. What are you doing going there? Just let him go. Whatever. I know. That's over analysis. That's fine. But
you're right. Though it's almost like Amanda and the kids. It was like the opposite end of the spectrum. Amanda's got these two adorable little girls that can't decide if they're Cockney or posh, and then Iris has this lovable old dude who's an amazing scriptwriter and can comment on the things of the film that are behind the scenes that we don't know, but then we know, and we're like, on that
point, though, about the two little kids, she has the nerve to be annoyed with Jude Law for not telling her that he's got these two kids when she was leaving she's leaving in 2 weeks' time. She's like, well, I guess it's okay. Of course it's okay. Of course it's. Are you joking? Are you kidding me? This is his gut. This is his life. This is his family. You were somebody that he ran into by accident. And you're annoyed with him for not. No, nonsense.
I think I've got to say, unfortunately, I like the bit that I really don't believe is them meeting in the first place. Because if I was trying to get away from men so much that I travelled to the other side of the world and booked this cottage in the middle of nowhere and double checked that there weren't any men around, and some drunk guy came to my door, they wouldn't be like, oh, sit down and have a brandy. It'd be like, totally. Get the heck out or I'm calling the cops.
Absolutely. There is no way a drunk guy comes to my door at 1 a.m., no matter how hot he is, and says, can I sleep on the couch? I'm the brother or sister of the person that lives here. No way. Police are being called.
Yeah.
Stranger danger.
Totally.
Exactly.
It's a terrible message. It's a terrible message to young women, isn't it? Do not open the door. Someone turns up.
Don't, no matter how good looking he is, don't.
It doesn't matter if he's Jude Law.
Exactly.
And you can get lost in his eyes,
exactly.
Which I did. But
yeah, well, yeah, we all did.
We all did.
The other thing that was weird was just back to those anomalies. And you're making me feel bad about.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
I'm upset about it. But no, it's fine. It's fine. That's why we're here. It's fine. But the bit that was also weird was, when they walk into the Writers Guild event, and they literally just walk in the front door, and it's like, oh, we're all waiting for you, and suddenly, and imagine that, just like walking up to, no one talks to you beforehand, you just literally walk in the door, and the whole event is just waiting for you. How long have they been sitting in that foyer waiting for that guy to turn up? It's like, yeah. And those time jumps were weird. You're right about the ability to rehabilitate someone. That kind of, I've found the jumping of, I'm here for 2 weeks, no, I've only got a day to go, no, I'm only, it's like,
it's very
that
unclear,
was a bit confusing
very
at times.
unclear.
Like, yeah,
speaking of
and them both leaving tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they're both like, oh, wait, when can you go? Oh, tomorrow.
I know, and right?
I realised later on that it had to be that they went tomorrow, because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to give notice to all the different people, so the rest of the storyline wouldn't have worked. But also, you just wouldn't leave tomorrow. It wouldn't be enough time.
Depends how bad the guy is, Eva.
Yeah, that's true.
The guy's pretty bad. She's pretty hurt.
And how much money you have, I guess.
That.
Well, yeah.
But then, speaking of time jumps, right? So this, would we all agree that this is a Christmas film? Would agree that this is a Christmas film? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's Christmas?
Correct. Yes.
Christmas does not occur in this film. They have the run up to Christmas.
No, they have a Hanukkah party.
They have a Hanukkah party, yeah.
They have the Hanukkah party, and they have New Year's Eve.
They have New Year's Eve right at the end with the awkward dancing.
As a day.
But they do not have. There is nothing takes place on Christmas Day in this film. And that, for me, was mind-boggling. Why would you write a Christmas movie and not have Christmas in it? It's so weird.
Hang on. No. I think maybe they do have don't they have a Christmas meal with all the old guys?
Oh, that's the Hanukkah party.
No, that's Hanukkah.
That's the Hanukkah party.
Yeah.
But do they do it again?
They do Christmas Eve. No. Christmas Eve happens, and you have, because you've got Jack Black and Kate Winslet. They're both sat there. Christmas Eve happens. Then New Year's Eve is right at the end. That all occurs, but you don't see Christmas Day, and you just skip over it as if it never happened.
I didn't notice.
It's really weird. Sorry.
Is that, though, because she didn't know? Is that because she didn't mean to write it as a Christmas movie? Have we just made it a Christmas movie the same way that we've made that other Christmas movie?
Die Hard?
Die Hard, a Christmas movie, and it's not a Christmas movie.
Die Hard is the best.
Have you seen the cottage with the snow and the it's a Christmas film. It's absolutely a Christmas film. That everything about the
I don't think you could deny it.
I think it's
but
maybe, a valiant
what I'm
effort.
saying is maybe the intent wasn't.
It's a valiant effort to defend it.
It's about intention, right?
Yeah, and totally, and I get it from a story purposes that it's really awkward, because you've got this thing, you've got this guy with his kids and everything, and you can't have this. It'd be kind of weird if the girl he slept with a couple of times is with the kids, but she's over in LA, but she doesn't really know anyone. It would be a kind of a weird thing, totally weird.
Yeah, totally. But also, it is a romantic movie, and it's about swapping, and it's about two hemispheres, one warm, one cold. So there's kind of that. So if you're going to swap to highlight the differences, you're going to go winter, summer, aren't you? Or not winter, summer, like warmer, colder. And if you're going to have a cold place, it's going to be England, and it's going to be Christmas, because it's romantic, right? So it serves the story. So, because if it was England in July, it'd be like, what's England?
Oh, totally.
Slightly less, not as exciting or not as romantic.
But then if you really want to push that further, then you have Kate Winslet in LA going, this is so weird that this is warm. This is Christmas Day. And I'm like I'm in shorts. I don't understand what this is. This is such a confusing aspect. And then you've got Cameron Diaz going, I've never been cold at Christmas. What a strange thing to happen to me. You can push those differences further.
She did get cold.
Not on Christmas Day, though. That's the thing.
She did get cold, though, didn't she? She had to light a fire.
Yeah, not on Christmas Day.
Okay. She got cold the day before Christmas. Is that okay?
I just noticed that Christmas was conspicuously absent, and I think it's weird for a Christmas movie.
Yeah, you're right about that. That was.
I agree. I also think it's interesting that I didn't notice that at all. Like I just kind of. Christmas was assumed in my head as having happened, but I didn't really think about it.
Exactly. Christmas is a sacred, special time for some people, and maybe they just wanted a quiet day that wasn't filmed or something. I don't know. Maybe there's lots of reasons.
I like the idea that the characters are sat there like, can you not today? Like, I am trying to have a quiet day here. and just
I'm out today. Christmas.
She just kept those
Too
blinds
much.
down for the whole day. It was just like, no, blinds down.
She probably did. Yeah. Anyway, right. What else? Oh, what else do we need to talk about? Okay, Marcus, what else did you not like? Go.
I think I've covered it to be. Oh no, actually no. So Jude Law and Cameron Diaz awkwardly flirting with each other, I couldn't deal with. I had to look away. The when they first.
Oh, hang on a second.
No.
Hold the horses. Okay, go. Explain this in detail.
It takes so long. They are like they spend so much time sort of awkwardly like, oh well, I think you're attractive and I'm a bit drunk. Oh, I'm not drunk, but I'm also here. This is my sister's house. This is so weird. They spend so much time, and then the kissing, and then the stopping, and the kissing, and the stopping, and all this goes on. It's like a 10-minute scene or something like that. And given that this is already quite a long film, I just feel like that's, you could have cut that down a bit.
You obviously haven't picked up when you're drunk. That's all I'm saying.
I wouldn't comment on that. I have nothing to say.
No, sorry. No. I didn't find that a problem at all. Did you? I thought it was perfectly reasonable. Yeah, didn't you, Eva? What did you think?
It did feel a little too awkward for my liking, but then also I think it probably would have been awkward, but then really believably it would have been way more awkward than that, because it would have been me calling the police.
Well, yeah, indeed.
So if you're suspending the disbelief that he would even be allowed to stay, then I would believe that would happen afterwards. She clearly fancied him enough that she wanted to do it.
I'm aware I'm nitpicking on that point. I really am. It weirded me out a bit. But one thing that I did find legitimately quite strange in the in terms of the structure and things like that is the trailer voice guy. The trailer voice guy that pops up kind of occasionally and comments on Amanda's life, and then you see her life as a trailer for a minute, and then it's there, and then at the end he's like, Amanda, you're back, and it's like, what are we doing? It was a really inconsistent tool, and I didn't really get the point of it. Yeah, she makes trailers, okay, I suppose she's obsessed with her work and things like that, but that actually isn't the problem. The fact that she's
the voice of her anxiety as well, isn't it? It's the voice of her anxiety.
It is, but it wasn't consistent enough to become the voice of her anxiety. If it was there a little bit more, then maybe, but it didn't really work.
And I think it would have worked if they'd given Iris something as well. Like if she'd written in a diary, but I don't know.
Well, she picks up a
that would suit
she picks
her
up
character.
a newspaper. And she reads, Iris is feeling like this today, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, that's weird, but as it stands, you have this, you're right, actually, it would work if it was mirrored, but as it stands, it is just this singular device, which sort of doesn't really go anywhere or do anything, and is just Amanda's. I thought it was very strange choice.
Wouldn't that be weird though? Because what if you have if you had the inner voice of the two women and not the inner voice of the two men?
They didn't matter.
The women are the protagonists, though, aren't they? Like you could get away with that in that sense. The two women.
The men are just there to be the perfect man for the woman, right? That's how rom-coms work.
Yeah, maybe. I just think that would be really weird if they both. I thought what was good about that voice, I mean, whether the voice itself was right or not, was her internal dialogue. That's her reference point. Like she's hearing those, she's creating those stories about other people all the time, right? About other brands, and so now those stories are in her own head as herself. I kind of thought that made sense to me.
I think it would have worked better if it had been mirrored in the other character as well.
It's just inconsistent as well. I think it only happens 2 or 3 times, and I think I just don't think it's there. It's either, I was about to say something really rude then, it's either commit or don't do it. Is what I'd say, because I just don't feel as though they really commit to it as a device. If they were a little bit more committed, then maybe. My last point though on my last note that we haven't covered, John Krasinski's in this movie. That's weird, isn't it? Like he pops up and it's just John Krasinski editing a film. Weird.
And yes, and Dustin Hoffman.
Oh yeah. Strange.
Kind of
I love seeing the video store as well. It's like,
I know. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, the video. Actually, yeah, that's true. That was weird, wasn't it? Yeah.
I have a big issue with one bit of the film, which is the meet cute with Jack Black and Kate Winslet. She lets him touch her eye. They've just met, and she lets him touch her eye.
And he's doing it.
Like, would
He's
you do
doing
that?
all this with his current girlfriend that he's very much in love with, apparently, in the car, and they have this kind of lingering look to one another. Yeah.
And there's love music going on, and there's a look. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Agree.
Yeah, it was a bit. There were a couple of creepy moments, I thought, with Jack Black as character, and that was one. And I guess the intention is about, there's something magical about them. There, some kind of magnetism between them, I guess, is what they're trying to portray. But it just came across, I think, as a bit creepy, or certainly for me. And also the kind of boob brush bit, in the restaurant.
Why?
But I think that just is a bit creepy. It's just
a fair amount of it was a bit creepy.
Yeah. And the other thing, actually, while we're on things that we didn't like, the one thing I did not like was, and again, I guess it's just a time thing about as we progress as a society, is all of the maid, the gardener, and the postman were all Mexican.
Yeah, I noticed that
or
as well.
Hispanic or something. And I was just like, here we go again with the sort of the support characters or the support people in the white privileged person's lives are all, and that I thought was a bit
the fact that
fact
that the Arthur and the guys are Jewish as well troubled me somewhat, because it's this idea of Hollywood and being run by quote unquote. That's a pretty negative stereotype, and also the idea that Iris sort of finds herself there with a amusing old Jewish guy to keep her company and look after. I thought that was a bit. If you want to find things that are troubling, then that one stood out to me as being a bit problematic as well.
I both agree, but also I wondered if the fact that they showed a Hanukkah party rather than Christmas Day might indicate that actually the writers are Jewish. I don't know. Is Nancy Myers Jewish?
I don't know. I don't know.
We could look into it. Did you not get the feeling
really,
though?
I didn't. It didn't hit me. No, I didn't. Yeah, but I don't know. It's interesting to consider all these things, isn't it? When you sit back and sort of notice those. Yeah, the kind of cultural and the the sort of the national, the profiling, I guess, if you like, of the characters and things. It's kind of interesting to note now. I think we're a bit more aware of that sort of stuff these days, which is great.
And she may have been trying to find diversity. I think that a lot of writers over the last kind of 10, 20 years who maybe aimed for more diversity than they could kind of handle at the time, maybe, or like didn't know how to write it well enough back then. So hopefully we'll have less of those kind of
it's an important point when looking at anything of this sort of age, isn't it? And anything in that way, it's and I say all of my criticisms, and there have been many, I know, are all with the caveat. I know this was made in a while ago, and I know that this is of a specific genre that kind of does certain things, and I just think that, and I think it's really important to think about always that looking at something in the context of when it was made, for sure.
Yeah, but it's also good to pull them apart around those things and call it out and say, look, this is what we noticed, and we don't do this anymore, and we've progressed from this, or I think the recognition of it is really good. And you can make commentary on it and understand its contextualizing its context. Sorry, well, but yeah, it's an important conversation to have, I think. Sorry, Eva.
I think writers as well, they can only go with their experience to a certain degree. I mean, yeah, you'd hope that you'd write a range of characters that weren't all just like you, but also you can only write what you have experienced to some extent. If you've never experienced sadness, I think you'd find it quite difficult to write a tragedy at that basic level. So I think I don't know. I think that it's definitely a good thing if we can get a broader diversity of writers in the first place in order to write a more diverse amount of media.
Yeah, and I guess one of the other morals of the story, if you think about Arthur, whose character was about 90 years old, as screenwriters, you think, oh, well, we only have to push another 50, 60 years for someone to give us our own
award.
well done ceremony, something to aspire to, isn't there? It's like,
Yeah, I have to make sure I keep up my Pilates so I can train back.
Merry
Come
Christmas,
stairs.
everyone. Keep working for another 80 years. It's going to be fine.
Exactly. Someone will read your script,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure of it. Oh, dear. Anyway, anything else? Any other concluding remarks on The Holiday?
I don't think it would have been as good without Arthur in it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he was ace, wasn't he? Such a great
I really
character.
enjoyed his character.
I think that this is a film that, on paper and in memory of watching it before, I think really works and I've enjoyed. But I think that there are other, and I think the premise is brilliant, and I think that there's a lot going on here which works, very, very well. But I think in practice there are missed beats and things that don't. I think the suspension of disbelief, for me, at any rate, they asked me to suspend a little bit too much, to allow it to me to sit there nicely and enjoy it in any kind of way. And I think perhaps that is indicative of the way we've gone as moviegoers and things like that. I think that there is a trend towards realism that came about sort of in the early 2010s, perhaps, and a sort of trend from that. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that we don't see this sort of stuff in the same way, and why the kind of sickly sweet angle on things is a little bit less kind of prevalent now. And I think that I think this is a really interesting case study in terms of looking at romantic comedies and where they went and where they've been. So I applaud your choice. This is it's a really good way to build into your conversation on romantic comedies in the future.
Romantic comedies. Yeah, that's interesting thoughts. And I think for me, I totally get what you're saying. And I think these days, certainly as a viewer of films, I'm interested in much more diverse stories than rom-coms. I don't think if rom-coms as they were then, as The Holiday, I don't think I would like to keep watching lots of more movies like that, because I've definitely changed as a viewer. I look for something different now in films. However, I think for me, I kind of like what it does. I think it has a place in movie watching for the very thing that it represents, which is that complete willing suspension of disbelief, or if you can do that. For me, I can kind of go there. I know what it is. I know it's shortcoming. I know it's not real. I know it's cheese, but sometimes I really want to watch a bit of that, and that movie hits it for me. And so I think when maybe now I don't, so now I don't look for it, but I don't not want to watch it again. It's something that I'll go back to. It's one of those comfort movies, and it will always be one of those comfort movies for me that, as Christmas is coming and it's cold outside and it's snowing and I'm sick of the British weather, and I just want to, it's a great movie for that. And I can overlook the shortcomings of it from a purist filmmaking point of view. And also I massively respect Nancy Meyer for the fact that she wrote and directed this in an industry which is really hard for women to write and direct together. I think she's done a monumental thing. So I have massive respect for her from that point of view. But yeah, interesting. What about you, Eva? What's your closing thoughts?
I agree with you in the fact that I think whilst it has a lot of issues, I think it does a really good job at what it says on the tin. And there were definitely moments that my heart was warmed. There were a few Kate Winslet speeches that I just thought were brilliant. And between her and Arthur, I was engaged and heartwarmed until the end. So for what it was, I thought it was good.
Excellent. Well, that was a lovely summation. Thanks to both of you for this very enjoyable chat about The Holiday. And for everybody watching, if you have not already subscribed or to our channel, please do wherever you get your podcasts, and you can share, on all social medias. We'd love your follows, and you can even buy us a coffee now if you like. If you'd like to know more about our global gang of screenwriters, you can check out scriptdepartment.net and see what we're all up to. And so the next one I think is we're going to be chatting about, I think it's Somewhere. Sofia Coppola. We're still on our Sofia Coppola rewatch, so we'll be looking at Somewhere next week. And then I think we're going to be talking about the Virgin Suicides too soon, aren't we? You and I, Eva, got that on our slate. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.